following episode contains explicit content. You've been warned.
What's fascinating and that nobody making any argument on either side want to talk about is that the government is primarily responsible for the problem that is the rising tuition rates.
Everybody wants to be something they're not and have shit they ain't got. Don't be a dick. Don't be an asshole. Just be nice. You don't have to be that guy. Show some respect. Just be a person. Love one another.
All right, so hey, buddy, welcome to another exciting edition of Brain Snacks Remote Podcast.
Welcome, everybody.
We hope that you all had a wonderful week. I had an extremely long week with the Velcro Pygmies, playing 6 shows in 5 days, one of which was an opening slot for the Velcro Pygmies. And also started out previously last week, the day after Jaxon and myself did a recording, I got some upsetting news, and I would like to reach out to our listener base and also Jaxon, put out some positive vibes for my moms. My mom had cancer when I was 12 years old. Damn. And she had it was Hodgkin's disease, and she ended up having to have a couple of lymph nodes removed. Then she went through the chemotherapy. Toenails popped off, bald head. I did my best to be her rock. My stepdad at the time was not a terrible person, but he was a drunk. And my older brother, that was when he started acting out and acting like an ass. But because she had cancer and went through all this chemotherapy, again, babe, 20 something years ago, she ended up, there are long-term consequences to chemotherapy. So because of the chemotherapy attacks your immune system, it will actually attack your entire body. It just kills stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully it kills the cancer as well, which is why people get really, really sick when they do chemo. Well, because of that, there is always a risk that you will have heart complications, maybe lung complications in the future. Well, my mother has had AFib, which is a problem where your heart kind of stutters or slows down, depends on the case of AFib. Mm-hmm. But she had a leaky valve that she had replaced last year, and not replaced, repaired. So like if you guys think about a hose clamp going over a valve, that's kind of what it was. Yeah. That's the best way I can describe it.
Right.
But that happened during COVID, so I couldn't actually go see her. While she was like, so yeah, and I was in the area and I was planning to go see her. I was just like, the doctors was like, yeah, no. And then once I found out that a couple of people that I was in the area with, 1 or 2 of them tested positive for COVID. So once I found that out, I was just like, we're not going to risk it. Even if I am slightly skeptical about COVID, it's just not worth the risk on that.
Yeah.
So again, that was last year. Fast forward to this year, they've been able to keep the AFib under control. She's not supposed to be lifting more than like 10 pounds. She can't drink coffee, or caffeinated coffee anymore, or in very, very, very small quantities, which kind of defeats the purpose of coffee if you're a coffee drinker.
Yeah.
And then, she also can't really have any wine, or not so much wine. And my mother's not an alkie, but she does enjoy a nice tall glass of red wine every once in a while when she's, shutting down. Yeah.
Was she a coffee drinker too? Before?
Oh yeah. That's one of the fondest memories, like sense memories. This is an interesting tangent, and I'll finish the story about my mother, but sense memories, that's what I associate with my mother.
Yeah.
Is coffee.
Yeah.
So whenever I was younger, we actually lived in Canada for a year. It was like a work exchange program.
Oh, I did not know that. That's cool.
Learn something new about me every day. Well, it was a work exchange program with my stepfather. He was working the salt mines in southern Louisiana, and there's salt mines up in the Great Lakes. I think it was Lake Erie. But So we moved to Goderich, Ontario, Canada. We were there for a year while they did like some cross training thing with this other salt mining company. And every morning I would wake up and I would brew a big pot of coffee and cook a big thing of hash browns for myself. But I don't drink coffee. I've never liked the taste of coffee. So, but I would make my mom a big cup of coffee and I would bring it to her, wake her up in the morning.
Yeah.
And this is before she had cancer, by the way. But that smell brings back those memories, and like I said, the sense memory aspect of it is anytime I smell coffee, I think of my mother.
Yeah, that's stuff that's unlike anything how that does, man. And and too, like, there'll just be some random scent, like, just like, and you don't realize that you've associated it in your memory, but as soon as you catch a whiff of it just anywhere out, it's like it just snaps you right back in there. It's like, whoa.
It'll take you back in time, man.
It's so weird. It's so cool, though.
Time travel is kind of real if you think about it in terms of sense memory, where, you know, you smell something, you hear something, whether it's a song or coffee or a specific place you got a burger, like any of those things, like it'll bring you back in time. You're just like, wow, I remember it so vividly.
It's like,
because
it's like involuntary too. It's like, whoa, it's not like a conscious thing that you do.
No.
It's pretty cool. But anyways.
So, but that's, again, my mother's a coffee drinker, but that's the sense memory aspect of, like, every time I make my wife a cup of coffee, I always also think of my mother, which can get weird and awkward sometimes depending on what kind of mood I'm in. We're not going to go super Freudian with that, but but no, my mother recovered from the original surgery to repair the heart valve, and then they at least got the AFib under control for a while due to the medications and whatnot. And they finally, like, they kind of had a good balance of everything going on with controlling the AFib with medication and, you know, post repair.
Right.
Well, she started having a couple of really bad AFib attacks here in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And it got so bad one day that she had my stepfather, who was a wonderful human being, Keith Arsenault, mad props, brother. But she had my stepfather bring her to the hospital, ER, just as a precaution.
Yeah.
And yeah, they got her AFib under control again. And then she had to schedule an appointment with her cardiologist. And then this previous Monday, actually the last time we recorded, I was trying to get my mind off of that when we did our last recording. But my mother called me and let me know everything was okay. And then she called me again Tuesday after we did last week's recording, which is a week ago today. She called me to let me know that she had scheduled, you know, she'd done the echocardiogram, which is where the procedure where they scope through your veins and check out your heart. And then they did an angiogram, but they discovered that she has 4 valves that are failing or completely failed, which is causing the AFib. So she's going to need 3 valves replaced. There's no repairing these. So she's going 3 pig valves, which is kind of cool. My mom's going to have three pig valves. That's crazy. 3 pig valves. So 3 valves replaced, and then 1 can be repaired, or they're going to try to repair 1. And then after that, she's going to be put on a list for heart transplant. Don't know if that's going to be necessary or not. That's also, again, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
There's one other route that they may end up doing, which will be a pacemaker, which I have a very dear friend of mine, Brandon Westmoreland, who had a pacemaker put in. He has a genetic heart defect. I mean, again, it's fairly non-invasive by today's standards. But it's not, again, as serious a thing as like a heart transplant. So
I hope all the best for that. I mean, that's a situation right there, man.
Again, it's been weighing on me, and then coupled with some other things that we discussed yesterday off camera that I will discuss in the future episode once that BS procedures over and done with. I just had a lot going on in my life. And I was telling you about it yesterday, and I've talked about it briefly before we started taping today, is I caught up in this, what if stress cycle, where it's not, I'm not thinking about all of the positive aspects of what could happen. I'm going, well, what if this, and what if bad, what if bad, what if bad? And you heard me yesterday, man. I was so just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know. I could tell, man. It was like almost like talking to a different person. I don't guess I've ever caught you in one of those moods, but I know that I get into them myself a lot. So I could sympathize or be there at least to listen.
It's just, I think it was just everything. Just the shit can only stack so high before it falls back on me.
Oh yeah.
So it was like with my the news about my mother, again, that was weighing on me. And then the epic amount of travel. We had a bunch of great shows that we did with Velcro Pygmies. We did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, again, long run, a lot of travel. And then after the Sunday afternoons show, I ended up having to drive. Me and Christy drove back home after the show. And you're talking, oh my God, I think it was 8.5 hours home. So I got home at 12:30 in the morning, and then I had to wake up and go to Montgomery for the thing that we will not talk about today.
Yeah.
So I was like on 3 hours of sleep by the time I got to the thing in Montgomery. And it was just, by the time I got home from that, I was just, again, just why? Why I was doing, why me? For me, I was playing the victim in my own head. And that's not a healthy thing to do. And it's something that you can't control all the time. And I would like to encourage our listeners, our audience, our friends and family. If you find yourself getting into that super negative loop where you're just feeding your own anxiety, you're feeding your own negativity, playing the what if game, whataboutism, all this crap. If you get stuck in that loop, I'm going to tell you right now that the best thing for me yesterday was to not record the Brain Snacks episode. It was just having a conversation off camera, candid, with my boy Jaxon.
Yeah, man.
Like, thank you for that, dude. Because it helped me reaffirm that I need to make sure that I'm trying to remove myself from that, again, negative loop cycle.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, I'm always happy to listen to that. I mean, I do that so much, and I'm telling you, here lately, I really started to, as I've mentioned a lot, I'm really starting to try to catch myself in there, and put some distance between that and myself, because it no doubt has long-term detriments to your health, and I mean, it can get really, really squirrely if you let that go on for too long.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not so much of a problem that it happens. I think it's really normal. And I think it's like just part of being a human. It's just going to happen. But it's just how long do you let it, like, have we not had a conversation, or had you not put some distance between you and the thing in your mind? I mean, people walk around like with it going on for weeks and possibly months and possibly decades. Yeah. I mean, like, seriously. So
a lot of people get stuck in that.
So I consider that a success even if it lasts for like a week. If you get out of it at the end of the week, it's still a success. And that's something that I think isn't talked about, because we're supposed to, in our the speed that our culture runs now, we're supposed to have it perfect and have a perfect take on it, like out of the gate, or else you've fucking fallen off the wagon. But just, you're gonna fall off that wagon, so just be cool with it.
If you look at the way pop culture is structured, and like the way the television series are structured, or in our case today, by today's standards, streaming shows are structured, even just your typical dramas, they're still, the majority of the people are portrayed as being like happy and quote unquote normal the majority of the time. And that's the kind of influence that has on us. It makes us think that there's something wrong with being stuck in a negative loop or stressing about something, which just compounds your anxiety and stress levels, because you're just like, I can't let people see me like this because I'm supposed to be normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's like somehow I'm bad in my and that right there in itself is an element to perpetuating it for me, at least, anecdotally speaking, because it's that whole thing of whatever you resist persists. Yeah. And if you keep pushing it away, it just gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. So you eventually have to, then you have a breakdown or whatever. And yeah, that's not fun, but I think we mitigated it a little bit by having a conversation. So that's literally what this is all about. So
you definitely aided in, again, alleviating a lot of the unnecessary stress that I was putting on myself. And you made me think of the situation. Again, we'll talk about that in a future episode, maybe a month, I think 5 weeks from now, once it's done.
Yeah.
And then I'll feel free to talk about it, unless of course I have to do something else pertaining to that. But again, we'll get to that at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But dude, again, thank you for that. And I'm going to briefly talk about Nashville show where Chrissy and I did an opening slot with Love is War acoustic. And then the Velcro Pygmies played a full show. This bar is called Bowie's in Nashville. Very cool. They have the whole lightning bolt part of their logo. So trying to stay true to Bowie. David Bowie, for those of you that don't. Again, I've never really got into Bowie. But again, mad respect for what he did for the music industry and pop rock, I guess. Maybe he's one of the earlier innovators as far as pop rock goes.
Yeah, definitely.
Super glam.
Yeah, definitely glam,
obviously.
Psychedelic, art rock, that kind of stuff.
But it was a great show, but it was not. We talked about this briefly, and this is your commentary is what kind of spun me out of my super negativism, because it was such a funny quip. So I wanted to bring that up just so we could talk about that real quick. Is that so we're musicians. I'm still full-time career musician. Jaxon, it's still a passion of yours, but it's just not your full-time job.
No.
But these guys in Nashville, whenever I think of Nashville, especially being a musician and knowing other musicians that play in Nashville on the regular, I always just, okay, so it's the same 150, 250 people that play multiple instruments, and they play in multiple bands, and they just they're all interchangeable.
Oh yeah.
Well, the show at Bowie's was much different than that, because it wasn't just like we showed up and we were playing for tips like the majority of musicians in Nashville. We showed up and we actually got paid to play, which was, again, in Nashville, that's bonkers. Oh. But it's the observation that I made that brought out the funnies was that when we were in Nashville, it's like I looked around and you have all these players that are all interchangeable, because they're all great musicians. Don't get me wrong. They're all solid, epic, studio quality musicians, but they all look the same for the most part. They all have that country hipster vibe. Yeah. And what was the doom of America, the fall of American society is going to be brought about by
the fucking Terminator soldier is a fucking country hipster.
Yes,
that's also vegan.
Skynet. Yes, it was. The AIs have cultivated enough people the perfect destroyer of humanity is going to be the country hipster vegan.
Yeah, man. They're here to tell you that you're not drinking the right coffee,
or you need to drink this IPA.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've got this. I just got this microbrew.
Yeah.
And look, man, if
you're not playing out of a cigar box that was handmade, then you're not doing it right.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're some of them are elitist musicians, but honestly, I mean, most of the interactions that I had with the musicians in Nashville, they were super cool, super laid back. The staff at Bowie's top notch, super great. But I just think it's funny that most of them they dress the same, they kind of act mostly the same. And
yeah,
I think
I think
that's just kind of the culture of Nashville.
It's the culture. You're exactly right. It's like it's the new culture of that place, and it's kind of this like this. It appears as this kind of more sophisticated, luxurious brand of country that's like, I don't know. It's kind of like white privilege in a nutshell. Like, if you want to talk about white privilege,
Nashville is white privilege country.
Which I fucking hey, look. I'm gonna say this, and I like, for all the talk about white privilege, like if you have it, flaunt it. That's all I'm saying. If you don't use your white privilege and you have it, then you're wasting your time.
Let's move right on to some hot takes. Hot takes. When I say hot takes, I just want to talk about the thing that's populating Twitter, social media, and Facebook, Instagram. Everybody has an opinion or thought on student loan forgiveness. Everybody wants to hate on the Zoomers, and then the Zoomers and maybe the Gen Xers want to hate on, the millennials and not just the boomers, but the Zoomers. And, it's much to do about nothing. It's all just bullshit, and it's all just political posturing for the midterm elections. Now, we try not to get over political with it, but I mean, this is a massive issue that everybody wants to talk about because it's, in my estimation, this is all just smoke and mirrors. Look at the keys, and let's kind of drive the wedge into that division just a little. Let's make that division just a little bit wider.
That's how I feel about it. In a nutshell.
And, yeah. But we spoke on this briefly yesterday, again, trying to get my mind off of the other crap that's going on. But what's fascinating and that nobody making any argument on either side want to talk about is that the government is primarily responsible for the problem that is the rising tuition rates. Now, in the last 20 years, tuition has gone up like 174%. So I think the average 4-year degree costs, I think, $36,000 to $38,000. Now that's bringing in, Yale and Harvard all the way down to like your, UAB. Yeah. University of Alabama, Birmingham, which isn't necessarily a state school, but a public school. And I think that the important thing for people to know and actually think about is that college, 4-year degree colleges, they're all just another big business.
Yeah. That's out there, in my opinion. That's all on the table. It's a money-making enterprise, just like anything else.
It's a money-making machine.
And it's, from my experience, it's backed up by the school systems as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm not
society
sure.
as a whole too.
Well, yeah, right.
Everyone's expected to go out and get this 4-year degree, whether or not it's something that you actually do. Like most of the people I know that went to college and have a degree.
I went to college,
but they're not even using that degree for anything that they're doing now, like professionally. Mm-hmm. And I think that's wacky and crazy. That's why I didn't go to college. Cause if I went to college, it's like, what am I going to, general studies? Yeah. Like I had no idea. Nope. The majority of human beings don't know what they want to do with the rest of their life at the age of 18.
Absolutely not. I mean, like I'm saying, it was something that I feel like well-meaning generations before who've lived lives where they've physically worked really hard,
Yeah.
and worn their bodies down and stuff. And I think it was in this part of the world, it was pitched as like, if you go and do this, it'll be different for you.
Instead of your body being crushed over the pressure and exertion of working a manual labor
your
job,
mind will be.
I was gonna go with your soul, your spirit.
Yeah.
So instead of crushing your body by doing physical activity for work, then you just crush your soul instead, because you're working some job that you hate to pay for shit that you don't really want.
Right.
And certainly shit that you don't need.
Yeah. And that's where you get into a higher conversation around it, is like, do you actually need a salary that high? Are you going to school for the salary? Are you actually interested in the field?
Mm-hmm.
Those are two completely different intentions,
Yeah.
two completely different motives, but society allows us to put them together seamlessly so that no one really, it's out of the way to bring that part up in regular conversation, or especially at the admissions office. I mean, they're not that, they're just, I mean, you're a customer and a number, and you're forced in a weird way. I wouldn't say you're forced, because it's not brute force, but coerced in high school and middle school. It's all like leading up to someday you're gonna apply and you're gonna go to college, and it's almost like you feel sort of like lower and dirtier if you voice that you're not going to.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously I don't believe that. That's just what I don't believe that's true. Because all things considered, motherfuckers working at rent a car with a fucking, degree in social fucking science or some shit, political science or
liberal arts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care. Like I'm not trying to like devalue like learning. I mean, that's extremely different than that. Like learning is a part of the human experience. Learning is not college.
Yeah, you should be learning throughout the course of your life. It doesn't stop with college. I mean, and
it doesn't start. It doesn't really, and it definitely doesn't stop at it. If anything, it doesn't start until, a few years after you've dropped from being in school. I mean, being in high school or grade school, it's like you don't realize that you're even a player in the game until you become a player in the game.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, okay, there's a game. My parents played it. I'm playing it.
Yep.
Like I wasn't playing it because I was just kind of, I can just, I mean, like I play video games. I get fed. I do, that's, but it, when it doesn't change until it changes. And then you realize you need to do something. But the college experience is cool if you can afford it. But I don't know. I'm anxious to hear more of your thoughts on it. On the forgiveness.
Well, here's the thing is,
I love that it's called I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I love that it's called forgiveness.
Debt forgiveness.
That makes it sound so spiritual and wonderful. Anyway,
you've been blessed with forgiveness, my son. $10,000 for your debt is erased.
Yeah,
it's either a Pope thing or a Jedi mind trick thing.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
or company store stuff.
Yes. So you got. So the point I was making is that the government created this problem with tuition rates going through the roof. So it used to be that you go get a 4-year degree, and this isn't necessarily accounting for inflation, which is another problem that the government caused and is currently causing. But when the government started guaranteeing loans for higher education, that meant that more people would start borrowing money. Well, the banks and lenders are like just foaming at the mouth at this opportunity to just start throwing money at people because the government's going to guarantee the loans. So they're going to make more money off of the interest rates. And then the colleges hear that the governments are going to guarantee these loans. So what does a money-making company do if you're guaranteed money?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I'll just incrementally, we'll just raise the price. Raise the price. So for a 4-year degree, you'll spend between $8,000 and $12,000 a year on tuition alone. But we have student housing, so you have to have a place to stay, and then you have to have food, and then you have to have your party money, but you also have your books that are that are ridiculously overpriced, and they come out with a new edition every other year that you have to buy, and it's maddening. And that nobody sees that connection, or if the people that do see the connection, they don't talk about it because they just want to make it a political issue where the Republicans don't want you to have this freedom. I was like, well, if the government would just take itself out of the scenario and just say, hey, okay, so maybe we shouldn't be guaranteeing that, these 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old people can have $100,000 credit over the course of 4 years. Maybe if we don't give them that opportunity, they won't abuse it.
Yeah.
And then they won't
disproportionate with inflation, or correct?
Yes.
So it's not a market thing or anything like that.
No, again, the cost of insurance, the cost of higher education should scale on par with inflation. Now, because these colleges are money-making businesses, because that's what they are for-profit institutions. You pay for an experience. You pay for a degree. You pay for this accreditation so that you can raise your status and get a better entry-level job. Well, all those reasons for going to college are now almost defunct because you can't go and get a decent paying job right out of college. A lot of kids are actually ended up having to go back, move into the basement with their parents.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's just a natural thing. That's like if that's true, which I believe it to be true. And you can obviously look and see that it is true. That is just in alignment with the way it is that you have to be let down in such a way. And it's for those reasons that I really see, I certainly can see that. I mean, obviously the obvious benefit of a forgiveness program, like saying, okay, we all made a boo-boo here. I could see that, but I just don't believe that it's about that. And I think we've established that that we don't really believe that it's just this giving. The essence of it isn't about giving. I think it's about distraction and division. And there, within the issue itself, there are a couple of points that if you get hung up on them, you can really be hung up on them for an infinite amount of time.
Yeah.
As far as like, well, the whole debate of, well, I paid for mine and you should, like, what do I get now?
Yeah.
And the infinity comes in where you imagine how far would we go back? Mm-hmm. I mean, it that right there is a cesspool, in my opinion, and it's toxic to your health to even think about that.
Well, it's all just political posturing, and it's again trying to get a voter base out to vote for blah 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 over blah blah blah. And you again pick your side, because unfortunately we do live in this democratic republic, which it's not a democracy, it's a democratic republic. Most people don't realize that we're not a democracy, we are a democratic republic. But outside of that, you're talking about billions of dollars that these colleges are making constantly, just from from tuition. But these colleges are also making ridiculous amounts of money on their sports. So football, I think the average rate of income that football brings to schools across the world, across the country, is something crazy like $39 billion or 39. No, it's 39 million. But certain schools obviously have a much higher, and then some schools have a much lower. And that's just for football. Now, how many scholarships or how many full ride scholarships can we talk about giving to people with the money that's coming in from some of these sports? And let's also ignore the fact that none of these players that are playing college ball or basketball or golf, that none of these players are getting paid, and they're sacrificing potentially their bodies.
School.
But no, instead of giving them a little piece of that action, it's like, no, you get a full ride scholarship, and potentially you could play for the NFL. So it's all, there's so many arguments that you can make about why maybe college should be free, but if the government wanted to really do something to enrich and better the nation as a whole through 4-year degrees, then it should be like, okay, well, you get specific studies, areas of study that will benefit not just, America, but let's say mankind. So, biologists, chemists, scientists across the board. Mm-hmm. Those, I could see, let's go ahead and forget. Let's full ride for most of these guys that are in these fields. And I'm not saying to limit it to those, but if it's about higher learning and about a higher threshold for, again, knowledge, wealth, security of the nation, then yeah, we should be maybe free tuition for some of these areas. But if I wanted to go to college and I could get most of my student loan forgiven, going for some rando, again, liberal arts studies, cultural history, blah blah blah, is something there are areas of study that are important but not necessary.
Yeah, I feel like
that could be debatable, and maybe I'm phrasing it wrong. I'm not saying that some of these areas of study aren't important, but they aren't. They shouldn't be. We shouldn't be held responsible for taking care of those. Like, I have always been about, if we really want to get a leg up on every other country, then we should be focused more on the sciences, but also in the trades. We need more carpenters. We need more plumbers. We need more electricians. We need more welders. The people that can actually take what the scientists design and actually put it together in a way that works. There's
a large resurgence of that happening. At least in this part of the country. I mean, there's a lot of trade school talk going on. Mm-hmm. It's almost like we've kind of backed up and realized, okay, maybe the trades aren't so bad. Because I think something that maybe the older generations weren't taking into account when they had their experience of working so hard. Mm. Not to say that we don't work hard anymore, because hard work is just foundational. Yeah. But it's not as physically demanding, given that the progression of the technology and tools. And I mean, it's far, you can achieve a lot more with less effort. Let's just face that. I mean, it's not like, we're not using hand drills anymore and things like that. So it's a different world to work in a trade even. But I think it's tricky when we start getting into, it's certainly very tricky. And I definitely don't know. I don't have any weight in that argument. As of today, I don't know enough details about that, and that point that you just made is that most people don't have any real frame of reference or understanding, because most people don't understand that the government is the one
United States government, and this goes back to like the early 90s, which George H.W. Bush, so George Bush Sr., he's the one that signed this bill into action that actually is government-backed student loans. So the government created that problem, and it was a Republican that created that problem. Just to make sure you guys know that I'm not being political with one side or the other. I'm critical of both sides because they're both asshats that don't have America's interest at heart. But these guys, now you have, again, anybody can go and apply for a loan and is more than likely going to get it if they're going to school. And again, you have kids that are applying for, $100,000 or $50,000 over the course of 2 years or 3 years to cover all their expenses so they don't have to work, so they can focus on their studies. And this is all great stuff in theory, but you can't have without having a cap on what the schools can charge. And this gets into really some wonky territory, is how much intervention should the government have in higher education? Because then you get into propaganda and indoctrination, which is already an issue.
It's already happened. I mean, that part of it is indirectly happening. I think we all know that we're not experiencing physical warfare, but we're experiencing psychic warfare, definitely. So
most absolutely, and that's all about. Again, it's not necessarily propaganda, but when you have professors, just to be accurate with this, you have professors that worked for, they went to college for 6 years to get their master's. And then they don't leave college, though. They turn right around and they become adjunct professors, whatever. So they have no real world experience in whatever they're teaching outside of what they learned in college.
Yeah,
so they may have written the greatest thesis on the planet as a senior, and that's awesome. But I think it should be mandatory that you go away for 4 to 10 years to be out in the real world before you can actually educate and shape young minds on how to think and how to live and how to do whatever you're teaching.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always going to remain conceptual within the confines of a classroom.
Yes.
And it's going to be to a young mind, it's very confusing and discombobulated, all the information, and it leaves you in a very malleable state because so much is coming in.
Yeah.
That's new. And if you're under the impression that this is something you need to pay close attention to because this is your path, this is the beginning of your path, then you're going to take what people say, whether you like it or not, and take it pretty deep, unless you're just partying all the time and you're not really there to learn.
Speaking of partying, I play frat parties and sorority parties all year. I mean, that's part of the Velcro Pygmies. Part of our show schedule is most definitely college shows. And
and to be honest with you, in my opinion, I would say that I would say that the party element is actually. I would make the crazy argument that the party element is actually as important. And I'm not just saying this because I have interest or you have interest in making money there, but it's important in a different way. You could view it through a lens that that network and of people getting together and just being fucking insanely stupid and crazy. It's like if you could compact all that into 4 years and learn some lessons, about about coming to decency, then that part is, I think that's a thumbs up for me. It's like if you can, realize what is it like to be blackout drunk, several nights in a row or whatever.
Unless you have a video unless you have video of it, I mean, you're not going to remember what it was like to be blackout drunk.
That's true. That's
Like,
true. That's true.
again,
But
hand to God. Hand to God. I can
But
testify
to me, that's more in line with where a 20, late teens, early 20 person. That's where you actually are in life.
Yeah.
Is you're still dumb. So it's like get the dumb out of your system.
Yeah.
and have fun. But you don't have to go to college to do that.
I didn't go to college to do that.
Yeah.
I was still partying with all the college kids when I was, my teens, 20s.
Yeah.
Again, but now I'm playing to the same group or demographic there, and I'm just like, I see some of these kids, and I'm just like, are we as a society getting dumber?
Yeah.
And no, we're I don't think we are. I think it's just that my perception's changed over the years.
It's changing. Yeah.
Yes. And that's just as I get older and, again, theoretically or hypothetically wiser. It depends on whose definition of wise we're going to go with. But I see a lot of things. I'm just like, I was pretty stupid, but like these guys are a different brand.
Yeah.
Or not. We're not going to go with stupid. Maybe wild. They're a different brand of wild than what I had experienced. But it's not. It's not to say.
And now, the crazy part is like we have so many more unique opportunities now to see everybody's debauchery just publicly displayed.
Yeah.
So you know,
thanks TikTok.
If you're the type that can learn from a textbook, then you have a giant textbook of, maybe what not to do, or just, you just see, okay, that's what that is.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to experience it,
Well, I've spoken to a couple of people that are college age, like friends of the band that have grown up with the band. And I just tell them, it's like, you know what, you go to college, have an idea of what you want to do for the rest of your life, because this is an investment in your future. Yeah. So I decided to not go the college route because there was no class that I could take that I was just like, okay, this is the direction I want my life to go in. This is what I want to spend the next 60 years of my life potentially doing, or 40 years of my life potentially doing.
I feel the same way. And I think that that's completely fine. If that, I don't know what percentage of the population that is, but that percentage matters as well. And I mean, who's to say, it's such a feat to even know one little thing about who you really are. So why put so much pressure and then you add the financial stress and the financial pressure, and it takes it to new heights.
Yep. And
that right there is imprisonment. It's a form of being imprisoned.
Yep. Well, that's the name of the game. Is the reason that people are pressured to go to college is because they're trying to fit you into this box. And once you're in this box, they're going to make it almost impossible for you to get out of this box. So a lot of people that have actually gone to college, Chrissy and I have toyed with the idea of like tiny house living, which you've been to my house. My house, I'm in like 1,400 square foot, and I'm like, I don't have enough room. So I can't imagine shrinking everything down. Yeah. Just because I have too many activities that I do, and I need more room. But I was telling Chrissy, I was like, maybe we could have like a 40 by 40 shop building that we don't actually live in, and then have a tiny house.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's like everything else can go in the big building. All our stuff, all our side projects, the podcast stuff too. But the house would be like that's our living area. We're not working in that area.
Yeah, that idea excites me actually. I've like, as far as me having a place of my own, I've often thought about, primarily just a big open shop,
Mm.
and then build a house within that, like a small, house within the shop.
Oh yeah.
That's
Well,
just
see that, but that mentality right there, when Chrissy and I were researching, and again, we're not going to do it anytime soon, but while we were dabbling with the idea of like tiny house living, the more I research it, the more like you watch YouTube videos on it. The majority of people that are doing this tiny house living thing are people that graduated from college and they are super in debt. But rather than going deeper into debt by buying this $450,000 house, they're shrinking their entire life.
Mhm.
So that's, if you can build a tiny house that you can pull behind a truck for, $30,000-$40,000, depending on what upgrades you put in it. I mean, you can buy that and pay it off within 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you don't have any bills. Like you might have a truck note or car note. You might have your electric bill, from wherever you park the thing. But realistically, there's a mindset that's changing from this big extravagant lifestyle. There are a lot of people that are starting to reject that. And from what I've seen, it's a lot of college degree holding individuals that are rejecting that, again, textbook cookie cutter lifestyle.
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Well, they're New World Order.
Isn't that crazy how you can kind of see that curve? It's like going more, it's like the external and everything is so unmanageable that it's almost like, wow, we really need somebody to come in here and manage all of this for us.
I wish somebody had all the answers to all the problems, and let's just let them make all the decisions.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be a whole lot easier if we could just all agree that we all just want to be happy and that we don't want to overpay for shit. Yeah. I mean, the housing market right now is ridiculous. It's gotten completely out of hand, out of control. And I've also there's an investment group called BlackRock that have been just buying up properties like vacant houses, vacant apartment buildings, vacant commercial buildings all across the country. And their goal is basically that everybody's going to rent eventually. Unless you're like the top tier uber rich. I mean, hell, in I think it's Ireland. No. Yeah, Ireland. In Ireland, they actually got rid of, they're phasing out handing down property from one generation to the next. So inheritance. So yeah.
Shit. That's crazy.
Inheritance
I'm not yelling
property.
because of you. I'm just tired.
But inheritance of property is going away in some of the European nations.
Wow.
And I think eventually that's a global government conspiracy, but we don't have to go into the conspiracies on that one. But that's just how it pertains to life in the United States and this student loan forgiveness is it's all about somebody else is going to take care of your problems.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to worry about it anymore because we don't want our society to be stressed.
And that's not it. I don't think that's, I think that we think that that's related to stress, but I don't think that actually is related to stress. And that's kind of controversial, but I think there's a subtle difference.
I concur. I can follow that logic.
Stress has nothing, at the end of the day, stress has nothing to do with your outside environment. It has to do with your inner experience of it. And that's
how you process it.
That's very high, and very simple, but not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that, if we all could unlearn and practice those more natural modalities of stress relief, I mean, fuck. I mean, we wouldn't be stressed and we could actually maybe deal with some of this shit.
Bang more, stress less. I like it.
Cool.
But yeah, so look, whichever side of the argument you wanna defend, at least maybe you guys have a little bit more basic knowledge and understanding of how and why the student loan crisis is what it is. It's 100% completely government fabricated. And again, the lenders contributed to it, and then the colleges contributed to it. So it's stack on stack on stack on stack on stack. And all this shit stacks only so high. I said this earlier, talking about myself. The shit can only stack so high before it falls down. And it's going to fall down onto us. And then we're just going to be living in a giant sewer we call the United States, or maybe something else. But it's all political posturing. It's all virtue signaling. And again, this goes for either side. Hey, I'm part of your team. Hey, I'm part of your team. You know, I'm not against giving, $10,000, erasing some of this debt for these people, but there are real world ramifications involved in this, especially with the price of everything going up. Everything, the cost of gas, the cost of food, cost of energy. Our electric bills have gone, like my electric bill's gone up like $40 in the last 2 months. $40 a month. And it's not because I'm using, like, we purposely turn our AC way up when we're home during the day, and when we're gone, even higher, so that the AC isn't constantly running, because we live in the South and it's hot. But even during, like, it was like 98 degrees for a week straight here, I had the AC running 24/7, 365. And our electric bill was still $40 lower than it was this last month when we weren't home for 3 weeks.
Wow.
So, but erasing some of this debt, that debt doesn't get erased. It's not free money that people are getting. And this is one thing that every generation needs to understand. This isn't just for the Zoomers. This isn't for the millennials and anybody else. This money comes from taxpayers, which tax law is a completely other thing that I would love to have a long form discussion on with you in the future, but it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And by erasing this debt, they're going to print more money to pay off this debt. And by printing more money, it's going to devalue the current money that we already have even further, which means that the cost of living for everyone is going to go up a little bit more, just a little bit more every time.
Yeah.
So every time they talk about free money, whether it's the PPP loans, which, hey, I'm not too proud to say it, but you know what? I didn't want to stay home. I was forced to stay home. So I was going to take advantage of whatever I could. Did I get my PPP loan forgiven? Yeah. But again, I was forced to not work.
Right.
Nobody's forcing you to go to college.
It's completely different.
Well, some people will disagree that they're not different. And that's okay to have that opinion. But that's my thoughts on it is, look, if you went to college and you get 10 grand off your debt because Mr. Joe Biden is keeping his political promises, if you think that he's doing that for you, he's not. He doesn't care about you. The political elite on both sides don't care about you.
And that's just a truth that you have to hammer into your skull.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that is not up for debate.
No.
And so you don't have to look at it through my lens or your lens, but you have to wake up enough to those facts that you're not special. Everything isn't for your convenience, even though it's sold that way.
Yep.
And it can be exhausting to try to figure out what they mean by what they're saying, but you have to go there if you actually want to begin to understand or be able to uncover any form of truth around any issue. Is that it's not whatever is said is just what's said. It's not what they mean, and it's not what they're doing typically. So, and it all comes back to, you're not cared about by a large body of government. And that's the fundamental problem that we have with it, and the distrust is that we understand that.
Well, the same people that would talk crap about, Biden's dementia and whatnot. And again, they're both sides are actually have been talking shit on Biden for a while now. But now half of them are going, no, Biden's great now. Biden's great now because it's the perception that they're getting something for free.
Yeah.
And this mentality, this entitlement mentality that we all have, I have it.
Yeah, certainly.
I'm not, but most people won't admit that they have it. But they see this. I'm gonna get something for nothing. No, it's gonna come somewhere. It's got to come from somewhere. Yeah. Nothing in life is free. Everything it has to be paid for at some point by somebody.
It's because it's that's like a law. I mean, it's even energetically you're gonna pay for. It's like if something is done, then it's done typically using energy, unless it's digital. There's
processing power that's involved, which takes electricity.
I mean, it's not free. I mean, things are just not free.
Mm-hmm.
So
obviously,
and they shouldn't be really. I mean, what's the, you know what I mean?
As Americans, freedom, land of the free. But I mean, we're all slaves to debt. I mean, this nation is a slave to our debt.
Yeah, and it's our own, and I think it's heartbreaking because it's almost like we're trying to achieve a personal, we're playing a very small game with our lives typically, in the acquiring of shit, and it's very gross, and it's very it's horrifying. If you realize that you're really just throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah. Well,
your entire life is just my entire life is just a temper tantrum and of sleeping on this side until I get tired of it, and then going to this side, and then sleeping on this side, and it's like, that needs to be examined, and it's very personal.
Such is life, man. Everything, and again, this whole podcast is based around trying to be more introspective and understanding the functions and meaning behind everything we do. And again, we've talked about the meaning of life, and maybe it's just the meaning of life is the search for the meaning of life, or to find meaning in your life. And I don't want people fighting with each other over what is essentially going to be a non-issue. The only thing that anybody has to worry about is if it doesn't get forgiven, then people will be stuck with the debt that they already have. If some of these student loans are forgiven, well, then instead of the individual paying this additional $10,000, that $10,000 per person, however many million it is, will just be distributed amongst the rest of the United States.
Yeah.
Because everybody is going to get paid for one way or the other. It just depends on who's going to pay for it. And I don't have a problem contributing to furthering somebody else's education, but I think it should be voluntary. I mean, some communal support would be okay.
Yeah.
How many billionaires are out there? Elon Musk. Here's a hypothetical situation. Why doesn't Elon Musk just go ahead, instead of buying Twitter, because once he actually officially gets out of that deal that he brokered, $44 billion to buy Twitter, instead of spending $44 billion on Twitter, why doesn't he just buy a college in each state and just go, hey, bam, here's your teaching staff. I'm going to pay you $100,000 a year to teach blah, blah, blah. And then you have to provide your own housing, but you go to college for free. You have all these multi-billionaire cocksuckers that they appear to be so altruistic, and they want to present this face that they are super, super generous with their money. But when it comes to affecting real change in society and the world, they don't really do shit. Except enrich themselves further.
That could be argued. And
that's okay.
I agree with that on a lot of levels. And something that just came to my mind when you said something like that. I mean, there's real opportunities for people like Elon Musk, it is to be in the general field and wheelhouse of tech, I mean, is in a position to create and curate some really unique learning opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's to me where shit gets interesting, is instead of this generic, instead of the old way of college, if that's a phased out, it decentralizing that into decentralize it and break it into back to source in a certain way. It's like finding, and then you can actually find really unique learning experiences and opportunities that, yes, will cost money, but won't have the same. They won't be dull. They won't. They won't be, ho hum, run of the mill. The education system. It's like, it's not even cool. I'm not shitting on college. I'm just saying it's not. Certainly there are elite programs at schools, and those, and even those people with the jobs that are currently there, those people would be interested probably too in what I'm saying. They could, break off and become part of a different learning experience for, new generations, which is fucking cool.
And this is why I like doing the podcast with you, is because you completely just flip my thought on like somebody like Elon Musk or, Bezos, one of these super advertised people. I mean, how Bill Gates, again, in his super altruism, which is, again, I think he's an evil cocksucker, but that's, again, a topic for another day. But one of these people to not necessarily reinvent the wheel, as it were, when it comes to 4-year degrees or college degrees, but adapting the current technology and applying, again, remote learning with legit college like accreditation, make it more socially acceptable that you don't have to go to a 4-year college out of state or whatnot.
Yeah.
There's your affordability there, and create and cultivate that. I mean, yes, there have been online classes for the last 10 years or more.
I'm not even talking about online. I mean, I've certainly yes, there are like the masterclass on remote stuff, but even as a physical place, fucking Elon, there's no reason Elon Musk shouldn't be at the helm of creating the fucking mecca for tech. You know what I mean? And just like, and people from all over the fucking country that want to specialize in tech are just fucking fired up to go there.
Yeah.
And it's accredited. I'm not saying it's Elon Musk as an ego piece. I'm saying with the type of money.
Yeah.
That kind of maverick should, has that opportunity. And it may be something that, I'm way out of line. I mean, this may be something that is talked about in the works, I'm not sure, but I find that more interesting than 4-year universities. So.
I concur. Again, I'm not saying that people need 4-year degrees. I'm just saying that's the norm.
Yeah,
there are people that can earn their degrees in as little as like 2.5 years or some shit if they overload their class schedule. And again, that's cool if that's your prerogative. But that's what all this boils down to, is it's your decision ultimately to further your education. Now, there are cheaper ways for you to further your education, and
cheaper and more efficient.
So it may not
more
be
pragmatic ways.
Yes. And some people go to college as an escape from their home life, and that's okay. That's okay too. But keep in mind that you actually have to actively make a decision to do that. So who ultimately, I think this is all going to boil down to personal responsibility.
Well, yeah, and
but nobody wants to take that personal responsibility.
Yes, and I agree with that, but I also am cynical in that because it seems like that is where it heads, and it should head there, but it's like it leaves you with a bitter taste because this whole time you were coerced into making this fucking, potentially, financially, I'll say at least financially stupid decision.
Yeah.
If it's not for you, and very little exploration, and true guidance on what it even means to be a person is given, and you're pretty much left with this as the most illuminated option on the table.
Yeah.
But whenever it gets fucked, people are like, well, you should have known. And I mean, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, ultimately it is. But I'm also, and I'm not saying you personally, I'm just saying,
yeah,
it almost seems like it's a messed up situation, and it is down to personal responsibility, but it's almost like you want the institutions that put you, not that they put you there, but they were misleading or helping in maybe a minuscule way to mislead you there, or not meeting your needs somewhere else, or even, making you aware of shit. And
here's an idea.
Really in the profit game,
Here's an idea. I need the hacker group Anonymous to just go ahead and hack every single creditor's server on the planet and just bring everybody back to zero.
Yeah. That'd be wild.
I mean, we can end the Federal Reserve, we can end the Rothschild banking cartels, we can end the United States government's debt. Just take it all back to zero. There's the forgiveness that the world needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a reset. Hey, maybe that's the Great Reset. Huh?
That's what I just said. That's a reset.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, we're linking up online here.
We're our fucking tinfoil hats now.
Dude, hey, again, if everything's just on loan, if your education is just on loan, you don't own that education. You don't own that degree. You're renting it.
I love it.
So yeah, guys, don't get too worked up, and don't start hating on people that have a different opinion from you. It's okay that you went to college, and again, I'll clap for you if you get some of your student loan debt forgiven. And if you didn't get some of your student loan debt forgiven because you're not currently a student, I'm sorry. I sympathize with you. But at the same time, it's like, it's not worth spending so much time in your own head, or specifically online, arguing with people on something that ultimately is just a political ploy. It's a virtue signaling, going, hey, I'm keeping my promise, because Biden's approval rating's been lower than any president, including Trump, on the planet in the history of the United States. And now it's finally creeping up. Why? Because it's all smoke and mirrors. Again, they don't care about you. So we need to care about each other a little bit more. Respect your fellow person's opinion. Try to see it from their point of view. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them.
You won't.
But maybe you can understand them better. If you don't take the aggressive stance on, well, you're just stupid. Look at all these Republicans that got their PPP loans forgiven. Look at all these Democrats that took out PPP loans. I mean, people took advantage. That's the primary response that I've seen everybody bring up, is that these PPP loans were forgiven. I was like, that's a different set of circumstances, simply because the country was shut down. They shut down our economy, whether for legitimate reasons or not, pandemic or not, call it whatever you will, tinfoil hat on or off. That was a different scenario. People took advantage of it. People cheated the system. The same people are doing it with student loans. It's okay to have an opinion about it, but don't get in an argument about it. It's not worth your time. Don't let that, Jackson, you brought this up, the way you phrased it in a previous episode, it stuck with me. Don't let let that take up space in your head. Don't rent out space in your head to idea that kind of negative thought process.
Because it does take up that space.
Mm-hmm.
And it does take up your time.
Yep.
And that clock, your clock is running. And that's, I mean, it's so simple. It sounds stupid, but just be mindful of that if you want to spend time stressing out about it, good, go ahead. But if you don't have the wherewithal to just take a couple steps back and realize that it's not going to change really or affect the issue more than likely, and it's not going to change anyone else's mind, and you're now in that loop. So you're in the right to be there, but you're in the loop. So.
And that's not a place that any of us should spend too much time. You can't completely box that thought process out, because that's just part of human nature. But you can, if you're actively trying to be aware of it, then you can start to curb it off.
You can choose how you can absolutely, you can choose how you relate to just about anything.
Yes.
And I mean, then accept the consequences that come along with that. I mean, that's so tried and true.
So yeah, hey, there's our hot take. There's our hot take on student loan forgiveness. Look, I don't really care one way or the other, because I know that just based on the way society is right now, we're never going to agree on any of it. So whether it happens or it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I have no frame of reference here outside of the fact that my primary concern is that our money is just going to continue to be devalued, which means that everything's going to cost just a little bit more and a little bit more. And the way that affects me is that I have contracts out with the band that are out 12 months from now that may be worth potentially 9% less. So we technically we're making the same amount of money, but that money is just of lesser value.
Yeah.
So there's my frame of reference. There's my hot take is let's at least slow down the inflation by not spending so much money. Just a thought.
Just a thought.
That's not just student loans and all this other crap. So with that, guys, we hope that you were offended.
At least a little bit.
But seriously, no, don't embroil yourself in the negativity. Again, try to look at it from the person you want to start an argument with. Look at it from their perspective. Nobody wants to be in debt. Everybody wants to better their lives, which is ultimately why people go to college.
And everyone's doing the best they can, because if they could do better, they would be.
Exactly.
Take that to heart.
Keep that in mind, guys.
Even the most evil, even the person stealing your radio out of your car right now is doing the best they can. Sorry.
They're doing what they feel they have to do to survive.
They're doing
or to get their.
They're doing the
fix.
best they can because they're doing the best that they can because that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. So again, have a little bit more empathy, and again, think about why you're having such a knee-jerk reaction to some of these topics, and maybe think about why these topics are being brought up in the timeline that they're brought up in.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for everything that's in the news. Remember that. And it's a lot of clickbaity bullshit. Also, remember that. So thank you guys for joining us on the Brain Snacks with Jaxon and Max Remote Podcast.
Thank you, bitches.
Thanks, motherfuckers. I wish I need Samuel. I need a Samuel L. Jackson. We need to get a soundboard on my side and on your side so that we can start.
We really do. We really do that.
Thanks, motherfucker.
We need that.
But no, thank you guys for joining us. We hope that this was entertaining, enlightening, and mildly offensive.
Oh yeah, I'm fixing to go to sleep, bitches. Not really. It's only 8 o'clock.
I've got some other work to do around the house too. I got some shirts to print. And I got to put together my new laser.
Oh yeah, cool.
That's gonna be fun.
Hell yeah.
But Jaxon, I want to thank you one more time for the conversation that we had yesterday. Thank you for helping to pull me out of my my negative loop.
Anytime, man.
And you guys at home, again, if I can impart one piece of advice, if you find that you are starting to get in a depressed loop or a negative loop, reach out to somebody that you know maybe has a different perspective than you, or just reach out to a friend. It doesn't have to be a deep conversation. Just having a normal conversation that doesn't even deal with the issue that you're stuck on can change how you feel and how you think.
100%.
So thanks for tuning in, guys. We love you. If you guys would, please go to brainsnackspodcast.com. Sign up for our newsletter, subscribe. If you haven't, please subscribe to our YouTube page, hit the bell notification, all the bullshit. Leave us a review, leave us a rating if you're listening. We are two confident idiots saying that if you're going to go out on social media, don't be a dick.
Bam. An asshole.
Oh, it's all love, guys.
See ya.
Do better tomorrow. Peace.